Hello and welcome back to Anywhere But Here. Today we're going to visit the land of enchantment and learn about the 10 worst cities to live in New Mexico. We evaluated crime, poverty, education, property values, and overall quality of life to come up with our list. Let's get started. Number 10, Bernalillo. Fans of television's Better Call Saul might recognize Bernalillo as the town where Jimmy and Kim get married. It's just north of Albuquerque on I-25 and is home to 10,500 residents. Bernalillo's population has almost doubled in the last 20 years. Bernalillo is also home to the annual New Mexico Wine Festival. Sounds like a nice little town, but not everything here is that great. Incomes are low. The per capita income is only $21,000, which is lower than the New Mexico average, which is already the fifth lowest in the United States at $23,600. Over 20% of its residents live at or below the poverty line. Bernalillo schools rank number 100 out of 122 cities in New Mexico, making them the worst schools on our list. And even though the crime index here is the second best on the list, it only ranks in the bottom 14% of safe cities in the United States. Number 9, Taos. Known as an art colony and home to a world-renowned ski resort, Taos is home to about 6,000 people. In a small town like this with two niche industries so prominent, two problems are created. It's expensive to live here, and there aren't many jobs. Unemployment is nearly twice the national average, and median home prices are 50% above the national average. Schools in Taos are decent, ranking 42 out of 122 cities statewide, making them the best schools out of the cities on this list. High unemployment and high housing leads to one other thing: high crime. Taos has a crime index of 3, meaning it is less safe than 97% of U.S. cities. Violent crime is almost non-existent in Taos, but property crime is really high, with residents having a 1 in 19 chance of being the victim of a property crime. That's double the state average. Number 8, Albuquerque. Welcome to the meth capital of the Southwest. The TV series Breaking Bad was set in Albuquerque, and even though the story and the characters were fictional, the meth problem is not. In addition to the overdose deaths, widespread meth use contributes to other crime as well. Albuquerque has a crime index of 1, meaning it is in the bottom 1% of safe cities in the U.S. Violent crime is high, with 84 murders and over 500 reported rapes in 2018. The property crime rate in Albuquerque is double the state average. Albuquerque police report that almost every stolen car that is recovered in Albuquerque is littered with needles or other drug paraphernalia. Albuquerque is the largest city in New Mexico, with 560,000 residents. Per capita income is $29,000, which is just below the national average, and only 17.6% of residents live below the poverty line. But Albuquerque schools rank 84 out of 122, so yeah. Number 7, Roswell. The southeast New Mexico city of Roswell is home to over 47,000 people. Most of the visitors to Roswell are there for the UFOs or extraterrestrials, so if that's not your thing, Roswell might not be the place for you. Per capita income is $21,000 a year, which is middle income for New Mexico, and 21% of Roswell's residents live below the poverty line. Schools in Roswell rank 68th out of 122. The Roswell crime index is 5, so it's safer than 5% of U.S. cities. Property crime is slightly higher than the New Mexico average, with residents having a 1 in 26 chance of being the victim. In 2019, there were 9 murders and 300 assaults in Roswell. Number 6, Las Vegas. Home to 13,000 people, Las Vegas, New Mexico has a long history of not being such a great place to live. In the late 1800s, it was one of the wildest of Wild West towns, home to gunslingers, cattle rustlers, thieves, and all other sorts of outlaws. Today, The streets are much safer than when Doc Holliday gunned down Mike Gordon following a disagreement in the 1800s. Las Vegas sits at the bottom 8% of safe cities in the U.S., with both property crime and violent crime being just slightly higher than the state averages. Per capita income is $19,500, which is over 30% lower than the state average, and 35% of Las Vegas residents live at or below the poverty line. And as you might expect, Las Vegas schools are terrible, ranking 91st out of 122 cities in New Mexico. Number 5. Anthony. Sitting on the New Mexico-Texas border along I-10 is Anthony, New Mexico. Incorporated in 2010, the population is about 9,300 people. Crime is not bad here. The crime index is 53, so Anthony is generally a safe place to live. But the New Mexico State Health Department called Anthony the third worst place to be a kid in New Mexico. It's not the schools that make it so bad. Anthony schools rank in the top half of the state schools at number 54. The problem is stifling poverty. 45.5% of Anthony residents live in poverty. And at 15%, the unemployment rate is 3 times the national average. And per capita income is barely over $10,000 a year. Anthony is one of the poorest cities in America. Number 4. Socorro. Located in central New Mexico, Socorro is home to about 8,000 people. With a crime index of 3, Socorro is not exactly the safest place to live. 1 out of every 20 residents will be the victim of a property crime, although violent crime is not as prevalent in Socorro as it is in the rest of New Mexico. Socorro schools are pretty bad, ranking number 90 out of 122. Per capita income is only $17,600, and over 32% of its residents live below the poverty line. Socorro isn't the worst in any of the categories we evaluated, but it's near the bottom in all of them. One of the best ways to sum it up is that several scenes from the film 12 Strong were filmed in Socorro because of how similar the terrain is to Afghanistan. Number 3. Belen. Another central New Mexico city, Belen has a population of 7,400 people. On one message board I read, there was a post from a happy resident of Belen. It said, "The city is sprawling with culture and life. Everyone in town is very neighborly, and we just act like a big family. The Walmart here is the best I've ever seen, and the only place I shop. In fact, it's the only place I am." So I guess if you love Walmart, this might be the place for you. As far as a big family, the crime statistics say otherwise. The crime index is a 1, meaning it's not terribly safe here. The violent crime rate is 2.5 times higher than the state average and 5 times higher than the national average. Residents have a 1 in 20 chance of being the victim of a property crime. 24% of the residents here live below the poverty line, and per capita income is only $17,000 a year. But the schools are okay, ranking number 66 of 122. Number 2. Gallup. If you take Route 66 from Flagstaff, Arizona to Albuquerque, New Mexico, the largest city you'll pass through on your way will be Gallup, New Mexico, home to 21,000 residents. Gallup markets itself as true New Mexico. Well, one thing that is true is that there is a lot of crime here. Another New Mexico city with a crime index of 1, less safe than 99% of U.S. cities. There are 97 crimes per square mile in Gallup, compared to 23 per square mile in New Mexico as a whole. Residents have a 1 in 15 chance of being the victim of a property crime here, most likely some kind of theft, of which there were nearly 1,000 reported in 2018. On the bright side, there was only 1 murder in Gallup that year. Schools here rank 70 out of 122, so they aren't nearly the worst on this list, but they aren't great. and per capita income is almost $22,000, but over 29% of its residents live in poverty. Before we get to number 1, let's take a look at the dishonorable mentions, the cities that weren't quite terrible enough to make the list. Sunland Park, Clovis, Los Lunas, Portales, and Truth or Consequences. Better luck next year. And the number 1 worst city in New Mexico? DeMING. With a population of just under 14,000, the city of DeMING lies just 35 miles north of the Mexican border. Per capita income is under $16,000 per year, and 35% of DeMING residents live in poverty. One of the big problems is DeMING's persistently high unemployment rate that typically runs about 3 times the national average. The schools here rank 82 out of 122, so they're pretty bad. And the crime index in DeMING is a 2, meaning it is more dangerous than 98% of U.S. cities. Both violent crime and property crime rates are more than double the national average, and both are higher than the New Mexico average. What really makes DeMING a terrible place to live is its proximity to, well, nothing. The nearest large city is Las Cruces, which is an hour away. Well, I hope you have enjoyed our list of the 10 worst cities in New Mexico. And until next time, please take a second to subscribe to our channel and feel free to leave a comment below. Is there a city we left off the list, or is there a city that shouldn't be on the list? Let us know. See you soon. Have fun.